My name is Samuel Harrison. But no one has called me by my first name for a long time. Now I'm just Grandpa Old Man, and sometimes worse. My house stands on the edge of Lakeview, where the air still smells of pine, and the evenings are as silent as my phone has been for the past few years. This used to be our house, mine and Mary's. We built it with our own hands, chose the paint for the walls, planted the maple tree in the backyard together. Now that maple tree has grown above the roof, and Mary has been gone for 15 years. Her death tore me in two. But I stayed for the children, for the grandchildren. I have 2 children, Linda and Michael. They are adults, busy, always in a hurry somewhere. They rarely call. And when they come, it's with the faces of people who have come not to see their father, but to do something. Michael usually starts talking about finances about 5 minutes into the conversation. Dad, you need to think about your future. Maybe a nanny? Linda carries with her an eternal sympathy fake, like a plastic flower on a grave. She tilts her head to the side, says, "How are you, Dad?" But a moment later her fingers are sliding across the phone screen again. And the grandchildren. Josh, the eldest, is now a teenager. Instead of saying hello, he glances at me as if I were an old newspaper that hasn't been thrown away yet. Once he asked directly, "Were you ever important?" I didn't answer. Because even if I had, he wouldn't have heard. The other grandchildren, younger ones, still laugh heartily when I show them coin tricks. But I already know that time not only takes away strength, it steals respect. I go to the store every day. Once, the salesman John called me by name, saying, "Sam, how is life?" Now new faces behind the counter look through me. I hold out my money silently. They don't greet me, they don't thank me. I'm invisible. The neighbors are new. Young. With beer on the porch and loud music. They don't see me, and if they do, it's only as a reminder of inevitable aging. Once I made a remark because of the noise. In response I heard laughter. "Hey, Grandpa, the 50s called, they're asking you back." I sit on the porch every evening. I wait for a call, a visit, something. But instead, only silence comes. I began to understand. The world no longer needs me. People hurry, change, forget. And the most painful thing is not old age itself, but the fact that you become unnecessary to those for whom you once lived. But I'm still here. And I remember. I was 22 when I first put on my army uniform. Mary cried then, holding my hand at the station. She gave me a photo we were hugging under an apple tree in her yard. I carried that photo in the inside pocket of my uniform all my years of service. It saved me more than once, not from bullets, but from oblivion, from despair. I served in Korea, then in Vietnam. I was a scout. More than once I stood on the edge. My brothers called me the brain, not because of my wisdom, but because of the way I foresaw traps, made decisions seconds before the enemy. I led my men out of chaos, but not always all of them. I still carry the names of some in my dreams. When I returned, the world was already different. But I didn't wait for mercy. I worked in construction, opened my own repair shop. Gradually, it grew into a respectable company, and I created something of my own. My name was known in the city. I was invited to speak at schools, I sponsored a gym, helped veterans. Mary was my sunshine. After losing my parents at a young age, she built our home like a nest of warmth. Linda and Michael were born to us. We taught them honesty, hard work, respect. I took them fishing, read them fairy tales when they were sick, never missed a single school concert. When Mary got sick, I left the business to take care of her. For the last 2 years of her life, I stayed up at night, changed her compresses, held her hand when the pain was unbearable. I held on for her. And after her death, for the children. I didn't let myself break. I was a pillar for the family, for the community. People came to me for advice. They listened to me. I mattered. And I believed it would last forever. But time passes. And now I am a shadow of what I used to be. But I still have that Sam Harrison who once stood in the middle of a battle and didn't break. It started with little things. Sometimes Michael would forget to invite me to one of his grandchildren's birthday parties. He would say afterwards, "But it was noisy there, you'd be tired." Then Linda sold my old record collection without warning, she said. "You don't have a record player anyway." But I didn't listen to them, I remembered them. Each one had a memory. Each one was like a page from life. And I felt myself being undressed piece by piece. The nurse at the clinic said I was exaggerating. My heart was, they said, old, but still holding on. I tried to explain the pain, but she didn't listen. Her fingers tapped the keys, she didn't even look up. And then she sighed. "You're just lonely, Grandpa. Drink some tea, more sun, and it'll all pass." The worst happened at a family dinner. Michael invited everyone to his place. The smell of roast meat was in the air, the laughter of children. And I sat on the sidelines. They were talking about me while I was in the room. I heard everything. Michael was saying, "Linda, we can't go on like this. He's starting to forget things. Did you see, he left the stove on? It's dangerous. Maybe it's time to think about the nursing home?" I froze. My body was like a stone. I wanted to get out, to say that I could hear everything. But I couldn't. For the first time in my life, I felt something new: shame. My own family was deciding my fate, without me. As if I wasn't a person anymore. As if I were a shadow. An echo of my former father. An image that had disappeared. And then there was the incident at the supermarket. I had miscalculated something because I hadn't brought my glasses with me. I asked the cashier to repeat the amount. And at that moment, Josh, my grandson, who was walking behind, shouted, "Come on! The stupid old fart can't hear anything!" People turned around. I stood there, holding my change like a stone. My chest tightened. I had been humiliated, my blood. And then there was the day Linda, instead of asking, brought a bunch of brochures about nursing homes. "Just look, Dad. Some of them are really good, with a pool, with care. Maybe it would be better for you." She looked at me with the same fake smile she always had. But I could see, she had already made up her mind. It happened on Sunday. I decided to go to the library, the same one where I had read stories to children many years ago. I wanted to remember my old self. There, in the veteran's corner, my portrait hung, and under it was the inscription, "Sam Harrison is a man who did more for the city than words can describe." I just wanted to check if it was still there. If there was still a place for me in this city. But the portrait was gone. In its place was a poster with a discount on a fitness membership. I asked the girl behind the counter where they had put my portrait. She didn't even look at me, she silently pointed to a drawer in the corner. There, among the dust and boxes, lay my portrait. In a frame, but without glass. I pulled it out, wiped the dust off my face, looked into the eyes of my 20-year-old self. I left the library, holding the portrait under my arm, and just then the phone rang. Michael. His voice was firm and cold. "Dad, Linda and I talked. We've already decided. You're moving. It's a good facility. The care there is top-notch. We've already paid the first month's rent." "Have you decided?" I asked quietly. "Yes. And it will be better for everyone. You'll be comfortable, and we'll have peace of mind. There are nurses, exercise machines, even board games." Board games. My life has been reduced to board games. I hung up the phone and sat on a bench by the road. People walked by, no one stopped. My portrait, wrapped in an advertising poster, lay nearby. I looked at it and thought, is this all? Is this the end? Phrases that had once been my shield began to ring in my head. "Keep your back straight, Harrison. A commander in Vietnam. You're a hero to me, Dad. Linda in 5th grade. You're my universe." Mary, when I held her hands on the last night. They returned like wounded birds, beating against the walls of a heart that hadn't yet given up. And then suddenly I heard, not in my imagination, but in reality, a boy on a skateboard driving by and calling out to his friend, "There's an old man sitting there, like a homeless man." They laughed, and drove on. I didn't react. But something inside me shifted. It was as if a rock had cracked in the ground that had been holding back anger for so long. I stood up. For the first time in many months, not old and hunched over, but straight. The thought throbbed in my head, I haven't been written off yet. I'm still here. And I'm going to make a difference. I didn't go home. I went to the local Veterans Center. There, Roy, an old Marine captain, recognized me. We hadn't seen each other for about 10 years. He was gray-haired, but there was still fire in his eyes. He asked, "What's wrong with you, Sam?" And I replied, "I want to remember who I am. And for them to remember too." The next morning I woke up at 5, just like I used to, back when my body still remembered the rhythm of the army and my soul knew its purpose. I poured myself some coffee, took an old leather-bound notebook from the shelf that Mary had once given me, and wrote on the first page, a plan for return. I wasn't going to take revenge. But I was going to remind them, myself, the world. The first item was to get my voice back. I went to the city council and signed up to speak at a public hearing. They were having a meeting about the demolition of an old veterans monument. I went up to the microphone, a tired old man in a worn jacket. They weren't expecting me. But I started to speak, and the hall fell silent. I didn't shout. I talked. About the friends I'd lost. About the hands that held the machine gun, and then the baby. About the pain. About pride. When I finished, one guy in uniform stood up and clapped. Then others. The monument was left. Then I went to the school where I used to speak. I arranged with the principal to hold a lesson for the high school students. I brought a map, a helmet, letters from the front. And I started talking. At first the kids were spinning around, giggling. And then they listened. One boy came up after class and said, "My grandfather was in Vietnam. I never asked him about it. Now I want to." I bought a new phone and learned how to shoot video. I started a blog. I called it Sam's Voice. Every day short stories, about the war, about Mary, about how to make a dignity tree in the garden. People started writing. Other grandfathers, women, teenagers. They thanked me. One wrote, "You reminded me that old age is not silence, but experience." My children. They didn't understand at first. Michael wrote something about public exposure and shame. Linda asked not to post family photos. I wasn't listening. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't listening. Because I was listening to myself. When I came to visit them again, Josh was home. He looked at me in a new way. He said, "My friend sent me your video about Vietnam. It was cool. You really are a hero, Grandpa." I didn't say anything. I just smiled. But my heart, it clenched not from pain, but from some warm memory. Yes, I can still be someone. I wrote in a notebook every day. But now it wasn't a revenge diary. It was an action diary. There were names of people worth talking to. Topics for videos. Scheduled performances. This was my front. And I was back in the ranks. I wasn't going to re-educate the children. But I could be an example. Not with moral pressure, but with presence. And over time it worked. Michael came by himself one day. Without warning. We sat on the bench in silence, and he said, "You turned out to be stronger than I remembered." "I'm sorry, Dad." This morning I sat on the porch again with an old cup of coffee. It was quiet outside, only the wind rustled in the crowns of the maple tree that Mary and I planted half a century ago. I looked at it for a long time. It grew. It became strong, slender, tall. As a tree should be. As a person should be. I thought this tree survived storms, downpours, frosts. But it didn't fall. It's holding on, because it has deep roots. And so do I. Now the children come more often. Not with sympathy, but with respect. Michael helps me with the equipment. Linda brings her grandchildren and says, "Listen to Grandpa, he knows more than Google." Josh, the same one who once called me a stupid fart, recorded an interview with me for his school project. And when he showed it to the class, he stood next to me with pride. And I'm no longer waiting for the call. I live. Every day. I became a symbol for someone young, for someone just like me. My name reappeared on the board of honor in the city center. But most importantly, I reappeared in my own eyes. I understood, old age is not oblivion. It is the peak. Not the end, but the height from which you can see everything you have lived. And if someone tries to throw you down from there, you have to either hold on or fly away. I chose the latter. No, I am not getting younger. No, I will not bring Mary back. But I have restored what is more important than youth: dignity. The world forgets quickly. People even faster. But you yourself do not have the right to forget who you were. Because only in this way will you remain who you are. I would advise everyone who feels forgotten: do not be silent. Do not hide. Do not accept silence as the norm. Speak. Act. Remind. Not for revenge, for justice. For yourself. If the world has pretended that you are no longer worth anything, show it that experience and dignity do not die. They are simply waiting for their time. And my time has come.